Welcome to Biz Meds with Darris and Saad, where we give you the medications for your business. This podcast is all about the minimum effective doses you need to make a massive improvement in your business. Listen and enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Biz Meds. We are your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris.
So for today's episode, we were kind of chatting about what we should do. And I think if you guys remember from the first episode, we briefly touched on, business and why we're doing what we're doing. So I figured we figured it'd be a good opportunity to kind of get more into just the generality of business and just generally talk about business and just the broader topic. So I want to start off by kind of discussing why we got into the business coaching field and the business consulting type of field. So for me, I want to say that I've always enjoyed solving problems. It's always been one of the things that I go head first into. Anytime somebody's talking to me about something that they're having an issue with, my brain immediately just starts going like, ding, 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 like these are the things that we could be doing. These are the things that could be the problem. And even in general life stuff. So anytime somebody's telling me that, what, I'm having issues with this, it's like, oh, ding, ding, ding. And so it's always been something that's ingrained in me to be a problem solver. I got a question for you. What inspired you to be a business coach? Because you've been doing it for much longer than I have, and you have, significant experience, and I've learned a lot from you. So what inspired you?
So specifically business coaching, I think goes even further back than that. And I probably would be really interested to hear your answer as to why going into business was so appealing to you. I would love to hear that. I think, and I think we'll tie it as we're kind of discussing this. I think I have an idea where this is probably a really important topic. Not probably, but is, and how it relates to other people in their business journey. I will say the coaching I fell into it a little bit. And I don't ever remember a time growing up that I really knew what I wanted to do, other than what I did know is I wanted to go into business, which is somewhat of a silly, maybe a funny thing to hear. I have people that know, like, oh, from the time I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, or I want to do this. But business is such a broad, a broad topic. Oh, who go to business? Okay, cool. All right. I mean, there's a lot of different businesses you could do, right? So, but I was really fortunate. Like, I was extremely fortunate. And I think we talked about on that first podcast where I grew up in a very, I would say, entrepreneurial household, where my father started his forestry company, one man. He got a loan from one of my uncles, who to this day is extremely proud of that, and still looks back and says, you know what, I knew your dad had it in him, and took a little bit of a gamble on my dad, and was able to, from the age of 12, start doing bookkeeping for him and working my way up. But that was really the first taste of business. And to be fair, I mean, literally I was just doing recording books.
Yeah, but you got to see the back end of it. And
I got to see business from the inside out and from the bottom up. And there was always just this, there always felt like there was something bigger, and that it enabled you to do more. And I don't know if it was, I don't honestly couldn't say I ever knew it was about the money or anything like that, but it was about what you could do by having a business. And that, for some reason, I always had an issue with someone telling me what to do, which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll pause there and I'll ask you your question, or ask the question to you of what like, do you remember what it is, or what was it that you like made you want to go into business? Because there's a lot of other opportunities out there that you can make a lot of money and do things with. So
Yeah.
very curious.
Yeah. It's great that you bring up the fact that, there's the money aspect, right? So when you're in school, first thing you think about is like, or first thing you hear is like, you want to make money, you got to get into business. Business is where you're going to make the money. But again, that's such a vague thing. Like, what is business? Like,
I was told it was medicine or lawyer. Or
Yeah.
you become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer.
Well, yeah, there's that too. But like, when people say it's like, oh, you got to get into, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer, or get into business. But if you think about it, like those three, they're very linear, one track focus. You know what you're getting into when you get into it. With business, you don't know. It's not one thing, but it's funny because it's categorized as one thing. And the thing that really intrigued me is like when I started working at businesses, you get to see like so it's the different levels of thinking within the business. You have say if there's a senior manager that's a business manager, right? That thinking for the field that they're responsible for is completely different than a business director, than a business vice president, than a CEO, than a founder. Like all of those things, they're different layers in terms within the business. But that's a broad spectrum. So for me, what really intrigues me is like, again, it's such a big, meaty thing. You can take business and apply it to several aspects all across. So what's always been interesting to me is, again, with a business, you always have problems to solve. You've always got one thing that leads into another that allows you, that challenges you into doing the next thing. I mean, you could argue that as an engineer, you have the next project that you work in that you start.
You're taking a long time to answer.
What
was it?
I'm trying to build an understanding of as to why it's intriguing to me, because for a business, like, if it's not functional, the people aren't getting paid. People aren't making money. So it's always been interesting to me to get into the nitty-gritties of how a business functions, how it makes money, and be the source of income or source of revenue for other people below. So creating that, wealth flowing through to other people as well. So I've always enjoyed being in that space, to be the reason that other people get a paycheck type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just something intriguing to me. I'm not at that space where I'm, the reason that other people are getting paid, but it's there's a lot more on the line to be a business owner than it is to be, I was gonna say lawyer, doctor, and
well, I mean, you're a typical employee, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like, as an employee, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
Business owner versus employee.
yeah. But then my mind immediately went to like a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon. I was like, I'm not going to compete against you. There's a lot online there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just different risk profile, right? Different things that are,
exactly.
and obviously skill sets that go along with that.
Exactly. And if a business is impacted, it's not just, your immediate paycheck. It's also like the 5 people under you or the 10 people under you. So it's always been, it's a high risk game. It's thrilling. You could say at the least.
Okay, so what I'm taking from that is that there's an element of, enriching other people's lives.
Oh,
like
100%,
being at the cause of enriching other people's lives. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing that correctly when I feed it back that's what it is, and so I think that's a really common thing, and so I think, how I got into business coaching is less as important as to the why. And the why, and it's not even that it's business coaching, it's really about helping people. It's about helping people, right? And specifically helping business owners, because we understand like all the challenges that go along with that. I don't talk about it. I actually rarely ever talk about it. This would be one of the first times I actually talk about it publicly, is that, my first attempts at coaching, at building a coaching company, were relatively successful, but not ultimately successful. And there's many reasons for that. But like, I get it. Like, I get the long amounts of time and the amount of energy, time, money, and all those things that go into it, the amount of like emotional investment and like the amount of hope that you put into something, and you're like, oh, I just believe this is going to work, and it doesn't work. And you almost feel shattered because you're like, how could someone not see that this is good for them? And, and I'm sure I'm not the only business owner out there who's ever felt that, or like, oh, they start a business and they're like, oh no, people are going to come because like this is such a great thing for them, and nobody shows up. And it's probably one of the most depressing and heartbreaking things that people have to go through. And for me, what I have always, I guess, become more clear on is that the mission is much, much bigger, right? That there's so much more, when I talk about business, it's less about business. It's more about leading myself first and foremost. One of the biggest things I had to come to terms with was that you cannot lead other people until you lead yourself first. And that is a tough fucking pill to swallow. Like, when we talk about like really diving into the nitty gritty of like the hard work and growing your business and doing everything. Yeah. You know what? To be fair, lots of people can bring a product to market. A lot of people can bring a service to market. You can go out and you can start a business tomorrow, right? One of the toughest parts about doing all of that is leading yourself, because, as I said earlier, like that whole, like someone over you telling you what to do, that's a blessing and a curse. And if you're cursed like me, where you don't enjoy that, well, then you are now that person that has to hold yourself accountable. And that is fucking hard. Yeah. Like, it's probably one of the most difficult things to do, to wake up in the morning and answer to yourself as to, okay, what did I do to grow my business today? Oh, how much time did I spend messing around on Instagram and not doing the thing I was supposed to do? And then beat yourself up and shame and guilt and all that stuff, right? Or, oh, well, I should be further ahead, but now I'm not. Well, now my partner, my spouse, is wondering why I'm like now spending more time doing this, and we should be further ahead. And, well, we don't have money to do this. And like, I've been there. I have been there, right? Like, I have been in a place where I've deluded myself to thinking I was growing a business back in the day when we were younger. And I, my friggin' poor mother of my children, like there was times that we had to buy cans of food just to keep food on the table, right? Like, while I tried to build a business and do things like that. And so, yeah, I think it's just a long way. It was really uncovering that the mission is bigger, because when I was young, I thought the mission was money. I thought it was about, oh yeah, you can build a business. You can go into business because you want to make a lot of money, and oh yeah, and you can drive a nice car, and you can do all this stuff. And as I've gone through the years, that has changed dramatically, and the mission is so much bigger. And when I talk about leading yourself, I mean, when you're able to impact and help owners lead themselves, become better leaders, they become better people, they become better parents, they become better managers, they become better leaders. Like, that impacts society infinitely more and helps us all like raise the tide of everything than just having money, right? So anyway, that's
No, and that's kind of why I was talking about the like different layers, which is super interesting to me, because as a founder, you're not responsible for the people below you, right? Yeah. So as an employee, you don't think about like what the intricacies are of that business and what all goes through it.
Completely different mindset.
100%. Right? And like, as you go through the layers, it's a different mindset. And that change has always been interesting to me. So it's interesting that you share that too. Yeah. No, I don't think I knew that piece about you, but
this is part of the journey where, we talked about this before. I think I may have said it, but like this is all really good editing, and people love, like, how many times do we compare ourselves to other people? We look at social media is like terrible for this, right? Where we look and we see highlights, we see specific things of what people want us to see, right? And even when you look at someone that have a business, well, you see the outside of what's going on. You don't see all the bullshit that's going on the inside of the business, right? That there's a lot of stuff that, are they just making by with payroll, right? Like, what are the owners doing so that payroll is covered, and things like that. And
also, just to hop in there really quickly, I also love the fact that, like, when we were just talking about business and why we enjoy business, you can see the contrast between the two of us. Like, you have obviously more experience in doing it, so you have a bit more of a view further down, looking backwards on the things that you've experienced and what you liked and what you want to do. I'm at the, again, early stages where I'm like, yeah, I just want to change everyone's lives and be the source of income for other people, and like change people's lives and enrich them with possible opportunities and possibilities. And I just found it funny because, like, again, you've been on the other side and you're like,
well, I mean,
it's scary stuff.
It's like most things, right? So, I think that just plays out in a lot of different ways. It's just time and distance. It's all. It's just a function of that, right? So some people are like, oh, well, you have a lot of knowledge in this area. No, it's just I just have a little bit more time in the saddle, or a little more experience in this area.
Yeah,
and that's all it is, right? It's just a different perspective that encompasses a little more distance travel. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And I think as you mature in business or just in life, that context is really important, because you're like, oh, hold on a second, because I remember being young and I look back and I look at the friggin' terrible waste that having a tremendous ego has when you're young. And I say that because I think one of the biggest lessons I had to swallow was that my ego was just too much. And I don't think it was crazy. Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it's my ego talking. But I think when we go into the business, or you go into the business of business, it is. I don't think people really understand just what you're called to do. And I think the reason, actually, as we talk about this, I think the actual reason that a lot of businesses fail is because they don't know how hard it's going to be, but they don't understand the calling that is associated with going into business, and the tremendous responsibility that we have, and that there is to people. And I cannot tell you the amount of times where I've dealt with people like, and they're, oh, just fire somebody. Okay, great. Like, to me, and from my perspective, again, this is just based on my experience and what I've gone through, and I've had to hire literally hundreds of people, and I have fired many, many people. And there was one time I remember, one of my mentors he was talking about someone, and it was just continually coming up. And I said, why don't you fire this person? Like, if they're that terrible, like, why did you just fire them? And he looked at me and he said, you know what? I could. But firing is the lowest form of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I had a hard time understanding that, because, there are big people there. I don't disagree the fact that sometimes when you're hiring and you have to make better decisions on, like, oh, okay, well, this is not working. There's other circumstances that you have to make a better decision around. But I think there's a lot of time where we bring people in, and I am now of the more of a mindset, not 100%, but like more of a mindset that we bring people in. I don't think we do a great enough job of helping them understand what the mission and the vision are. Mm-hmm. And as a result, like, they don't see where they fit into that picture. And then we want them to buy in, and we want them to act like us according to the business. And like, we've given them nothing to grab onto.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. What's anyone going to do when they don't understand what the bigger picture is, or how they fit into that? We think that somehow they're going to self-motivate into that. The whole reason, if we've come to the table to say, we're doing this, we're out there to do this big thing, are you in? Someone's going to be like, oh, I want in on that. but how do you fit into that? And then not only that, so you're going to bring some desire to want to achieve that. But if I'm not supporting you, if I'm not giving you the tools, I'm not giving you the training, the coaching, the mentoring, and all that stuff, then I have failed. Yeah. I have failed that person. Yeah. And so until I can fully exhaust all of those things, because as long as they have some desire that they want to, I can bring everything else. And at that point, if I've brought everything else to the table, I've coached, I've mentored, I've given you the tools, I've done all the things, I've done all of the work to set you up for success, and you don't want to, it's a very different conversation.
That's a different thing, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about this before too, and so we'll expand more, obviously, on a topic in the future. We were thinking about talking about skills, but everything is a skill that you can learn. And it's super important because we've had conversations with some business owners before where they're talking about like, I can't find another me. Oh. I cannot find another, somebody that can do the same thing that I do.
I wouldn't want another me. Yeah, exactly. I'm enough of me for me.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of, business is utilizing somebody else's mindset, teaching them the skills, and then giving them the freedom and creativity to help grow the business. If you have 10 of you, then it's just the same people doing the same thing, right? Like it just doesn't, that's not how businesses grow. And, I was thinking about this a while ago because, again, and this is why I say business is such a broad thing. The knowledge is always transferable. So if you had a conversation with somebody in the 1900s that started a business in 1900s, they would be so confused if you were telling them like, I have this online website, I do all of my things online, I have a podcast that I run online. And they're like, what is that? I walk across the street and deliver my product, and I'm killing it doing that way. And if they were to come into like our century, they'd be super confused to understand or to see the progress that we've made. But the knowledge, the baseline understanding of how to run a business is still all the same. That skill is still the same. It just grows with time. And that's why having a leader that leads by doing and showing, sharing the proper knowledge, sharing the proper tools, setting up the team for success, right? That's
everyone's in search of the perfect, like the silver bullet. Oh, like I get it, right? We're conditioned by marketing to really believe like that there's a magic bullet out there. So so here's a question I'm going to selfishly ask because I'm going to get you to ask it to me back. What are some of the things about business that were actually harder than you thought, or what's something about business that you didn't really think about before you getting into it?
Oh, sales and marketing. Like that was one of the biggest things for me because and even to this day, like it's something that I need to work on. And when I say sales, it's like doing a good job defining the problem I can solve. Because I'm confident in the problem I can solve, and a lot of times when people know what it is that they're looking to get resolved, they know how. Like obviously, reach out to me, I'll get it resolved. But selling to somebody that doesn't know they have a problem, it's tough for me. It's like, I know what I can fix for you. Let me fix it for you. But for them, they don't even know what it is that I'm gonna fix for them. Irregardless of like me being able to resolve that problem for them, it's just they don't even know. And being able to communicate that in like a more presentable fashion has always been something that, or was something that I wasn't aware of. I just assumed like you go online, you tell people you can solve a problem, people start coming to you immediately. And they're
if you build it, they will come.
Exactly. I thought that it would be that easy, but there's an art to marketing and selling, which I've gained to appreciate recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
So ditto. Question back to you. Surprise.
Yeah. Oh, I am so absolutely. I don't know where this.
Didn't think you'd ask me this question.
Such a great question. So one of the things I think about business that I didn't really realize, or like it just hit me one day, was that like being successful in business is boring as shit. It's boring. It's doing a lot of really boring things over and over and over, which is really hard when you are geared to always want novelty, something new. And it's really like doing boring stuff day in and day out. And it's a war of attrition. Like, it's like, can you keep doing this really boring stuff all the time? Because there's nothing wonderfully sexy about like writing sales copy or marketing and things like that. There's like, it's not, or maybe creating content or whatever. Like this, right? And the actual like delivery of coaching and stuff is probably the greatest part, but like all the other stuff is not fantastically, amazingly, captivating and and going to keep your attention. Right. And so I think it was just really realizing that, oh yeah, there's a lot of really like, it's just being really comfortable with doing a lot of really boring shit.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. I think the other part with that was the extreme importance of leadership. And when I say that, like leading yourself, like understand that never expecting or never asking someone to do something that you haven't or not willing to do yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And that means if you are trying to tell someone how they should handle a situation, you better handle situations like that. So if you are trying to get your manager to coach someone, well, you better be improving your coaching. You better be giving them the right tools and skill sets and developing them to have that conversation, not just abdicating and saying, well, I told them they should tell that person, they should handle that. That's just a complete abdication of responsibility. And then we wonder why we have these problems that keep popping up. It's because we're not actually developing and supporting people in the way they need to grow.
Yeah.
And then wonder why no one is really geared into growing the business like we are. They're like, I don't understand it. I pay them really well. By the way, I think the second lowest form of leadership is pay. I'm going to say that. So
what do you mean by that?
I mean, with the limited amount of time we have left, I think it's like you only motivate someone to a certain level with money. Like there are studies, I don't have it with me, but there was a study. It was like, once you meet, it was a few years ago, but I think it was like 70,000 US per year is kind of like the top end of where you like motivate people with more money. And then there's a whole host of other things that then become way more important, like autonomy and responsibility and things like that. They become much more important than just money. All right. So money will get you to a certain point, but it will only get you to a certain point. There's a whole host of other things that come more important to that, helping motivate people than, oh, I just pay them really well. Great. So you've met the basic expectation. Wonderful. Great. But some people think just because I pay someone that they should care about this business as much as I do. That is absolute horseshit. Swearing a lot this podcast.
No, that's totally fine. I, as you mentioned, we're approaching a very short little timeline.
I feel like we could easily go for an hour and a half.
Oh,
we could turn this long form.
We appreciate you guys joining us for this very passionate conversation about business.
Probably not the last one because I'm fired up, absolutely fired up about a lot of this stuff that's happening.
Round 2 coming up.
So we might do 2 podcasts, very similar form, and we're just going to go on whatever is on the top of our head, and maybe you'll get some thing that, but I think the biggest part of that is, I think there's a lot of misconception about business, but it's also important to understand, like, okay, there's 2 sides. There's a dark side to business. There's, obviously there's other thing, but I think one of the biggest things is like, without having purpose, a mission, like those are things that are going to be able to help people grab onto, and yourself as well. What's going to kick your ass out of bed, whatever time, to get stuff done is having a mission big enough that pulls you towards that.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like that you kind of summarize that, having that mission, having a drive towards something, wanting to deliver something. I want to add, like, again, as you mentioned, having the ability to actually lead by example, show people, not just go ahead and fire somebody because you can't understand how to train and educate and get them caught up.
Or you've just done a terrible job giving them the tools, supporting them because you're not there, and then getting mad at them, frustrated at them when it's probably more often than not. There's both parties are have responsibility.
Exactly. And then last but not least, as a business owner, always be open to learning, always be open to growing, keeping your mindset ever open to all possibilities are on the business side.
I think that goes back to ego, right? The biggest lesson I had to learn was checking your ego. And for those who are interested, I highly recommend, super easy read, but Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Like, fantastically. I actually recommend that book very highly to a lot of clients, a lot of people, to understand. And if you're sitting there listening, watching and saying, I don't have an ego, that is your ego talking to you. And that is the clearest sign that you probably need to get your ego in check. I am on fire.
Exactly. So keep watching our podcast episodes. There's definitely going to be a part 2 to this. As you can see, we're super passionate about this subject, but I think this is the perfect spot to
thank our moms.
Exactly. Thank
for the mothers that watch this podcast. Saad's mom, love you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of the comments and the absolute every time you watch and let us
all
know.
The support,
we really appreciate that. So moms, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone else, you are absolutely just as thanked for being along the ride with us.
The support, yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you on the next
episode.